Good afternoon, students, and welcome back. So we are here with the second part of the chapter, Tippitty the flying squirrel. So we have already known many things about this Tippitty, how the writer found him, then how does she fly, what was the routine, how was the walks, and everything. Okay, now let's start with the rest of the chapter. So flying squirrels are said to lap their, but Tippity was much too ladylike to make any such fuss over her milk. She was usually in rather a hurry for it, and consequently more her face went into the saucer than was intended by nature, with the result that a certain amount of liquid went up in her nose and made Tippity sneeze and splutter. Sometimes several attempts were made before she really settled down to have a good drink, but when she did, she got her lips well into the milk and no attempt was made to lap. So normally what does the squirrels used to do? They used to just make too much of fuss for drinking milk. But this Tippity was a ladylike, like she was very simple and everything. She would go hurriedly and dip her mouth in the that bowl in which the milk is kept, and she would not wait. She would be in a hurry to go and have a good drink of the milk. She frequently accompanied me and the dogs on an afternoon stroll after being ruthlessly pulled out of her box. So she didn't like to go for this walk and all, but she was pulled. She was ruthlessly pulled means without any compassion or something. She was pulled out of a box and she was made to go on a walk with the dogs and the writer. So for the first 100 yards or so, she was perfectly happy jumping along when behind a flying squirrel's. So for the first 100 yards or so, she was perfectly happy jumping along and behind. A flying squirrel's nature mode of progression when on the ground is a succession of jumps, not the graceful little hops of the stripped squirrel, but rather a lumbering gallop with all 4 feet in the air at the same time and the tail held straight up in the air, in the last 4 inches or so curling over. So this was a movement, like whenever she was happy for the first 100 yards, when she was going for a walk, she used to be very happy and she would curl and do everything what is mentioned over there. Then this not being adapted for long distances, Tippity would soon overshoot her endurance and came to a halt. Okay, and this would not long for last. Then she would give up that okay, now she doesn't want to move any step further, so she would give up and she would not walk. She would take a halt. She would stop over there. If I were near, she would make for my leg and be upon on my shoulder in the twinkling of an eye. Then what happens? That she would go to the writer and she would look and try to get free from there. Or if Brock or Dawn happened to be at hand, she would spring on to one of their back and get a free ride. So she was too tired to walk on her own feet. So she used to sit on this either of the 2 dogs and she would take a ride over them. An oak or a deodar tree invariably attracted her attention and she would make her way to the extreme end of a branch and nibble off the young leaves. The point of the stem which grew out of the branch appealed to her most and she would pick off leaf after leaf, just nibbling the juicy end of it and throw the rest away. However, she was quite happy on any tree or shrub and found something to eat on all. So she was very fond of oak and the other tree. She would go and sit on it and eat its branches or leaves very nicely, nibble, okay. And then the writer is saying that she is fond of every tree or shrub because she used to find something or the other to eat on every tree. As I have already said, Tippity was nocturnal. Nocturnal means somebody who wakes up at night and wake up a little after sunset if left to herself. So she was like a girl or she was like a human that she would go to sleep very late, okay, or didn't sleep, and after the sun rises only then she wakes up in the morning. Provided she did not get a good dinner, she would be prepared to play and look about for odds and ends to nibble on all night through. So if she doesn't get a good dinner, so she would go to all the trees in the yard and she would nibble the leaves. Then what did she do? Okay, I very soon discovered that a good feed just before I went to bed and had the effect of making her sleepy too. On custard nights means when this special food is made. Tippitty would invariably overeat, and that meant sleeping solidly till the early hours of the morning. So when she has got this good food, she used to sleep a lot. She very seldom woke up during the night. As a rule, I would wake up to find a warm, softy, furry ball curled up against my neck. But occasionally, the awakening would be much ruder, and I would find Tippitty having a lovely game with my toes, ears, or my hair. So now this writer is saying that when Tippitty is in a good mood, so she would just go and curl herself and sit beside the neck of the writer. But when she would be in a very rude mood, what does she used to do? She used to play lovely games with the toes of the writer, and with the ears and with the hair she used to play. There was something extraordinarily fascinating about her every movement, and her little chirrup of pleasure was very sweet to hear. The writer is saying that she is very fascinating. She is not ordinary, she is extraordinary. And whenever she used to chirp or make any kind of a noise, it was very pleasing to hear. Tippitty has an assortment of calls. Her growl was most alarming and would have done credit to an animal 10 times her size. She had a temper of her own, I am sorry to say, which every member of the household, master and dogs included, had occasion to remember. So she was different, very different with others. उसका जो बड़ा होना था, when she was growing, she was growing at a very high speed. Okay, उसके जो साथ के थे वो उससे 10 times बड़े हो गए थे. But still she has her own mood. And everybody in the house was familiar that उसका mood बहुत important है, and she always changes her mood. So everybody in the family was familiar that we have to remember the occasions when she is upset. It showed for a second and gone again as suddenly as it has been roused. But in that instant her sharp claws had torn some offending hands on her terrible teeth had sent a dog howling out of the room. So उसका जो गुस्सा था, it was for a short term, but उतने टाइम में भी she used to make this destruction a lot. अपने sharp claws से वो किसी का हाथ just torn the hands, or she would terribly bite the dogs. So these were the characteristics of Tippitty. Poor Tippitty, her end was tragic in the extreme. We hoped it was also painless. She had been tied up just before dinner, but somehow the end of the chain had got unfastened from the leg of the chair. So now the writer is talking about how did this Tippitty died. As usual, she was tied up with the chain when everybody was having dinner, but then she somehow tried to unfasten means chain khol lena. I heard her hopping about on the boards of the veranda and dragging her chain behind her. I went out to bring her back, but in that instant something flashed past me. There was a tiny squeal, and a fox had poor Tippitty in its relentless jaws. Her death was avenged, but that is another story. So when this Tippitty has just set her free from those clutches of the chain, so she was moving out in the yard. And as the writer moved behind her, what does he saw? He saw that there is a fox, and the fox is holding that Tippitty in its claws, and then she is eating her. And this was very bad, and the author also felt very bad. Later they have taken revenge, means they have given some punishment to the fox, but till that time Tippitty has already gone. So this writer believed that the death of Tippitty was very tragic, and she didn't died a normal death. Alright, I hope you all have understood the story. Kindly read it again, and in case of any doubt you can ask. Thank you.